Hey everybody, how you doing? It's been a while since I've done my Cube Vanguard, and so much so that even my camera isn't properly set. Been very busy. A lot of Veeam, a lot of object storage, a lot of some other secret sauce, which I can't talk about. And you know I love to talk, so it's always difficult to keep my mouth shut. So I got the Veeam pin. There we go. Works every time. Hurts a bit though. No, I'm joking. Um, if you talk a lot, it's easier to keep secrets because people figure that you're just telling them everything. Just joking. So, what's happened in the last month or so? A lot of stuff. I got Tanzu swag, Tanzu Vanguard swag. So nice. Not this only, a bunch of other stuff. But my swag gets lost after the initial explosion of the box, swag box. It kind of like, oh no, there we go. This is a cool Tanzu Vanguard pin, and this is one of these pins that you don't like, hurt yourself with because it's a magnet. Look at that. So the normal pins you get, you start to fiddle with them, you put them in there, and this one won't let you do that. It's really good. Of course, you go through a metal detector. When you go through a metal detector, anyways, you're going to get nailed. So, yeah, a lot of stuff happening. But what I want to talk about today is a couple of things, a lot of fun stuff. I've been annoyed by certificates for quite a while. In fact, they've annoyed me ever since I first met certificates because just I don't know. I didn't understand them, and then I didn't want to waste my time. I don't know. So they've chased me around. You see not secure and self-signed certs and all this stuff. So I finally decided, okay, let's just confront my fears and install a certificate, like in my lab, a certificate server, a root server. And it turned out not to be that bad. I found some great instructions. So that's the key. I don't know who thinks all this up by themselves. I don't think anyone does. We're all searching for stuff on the internet, and we're all helping each other out and giving each other, pointers to where to go. And I found a great description of how to create a open source certificate authority server called StepCA. But not only just to install it in a VM or something, use up all my precious resources in my lab, but in fact, to install it in a Podman container. And Podman's pretty cool, apparently, and I've played a bit with it. I'm getting more and more into it because it's using the CRIO container runtime, which is lighter, certainly lighter than Docker. That's what they say. At least I'm no expert in that sense. But this was one of those times where I really enjoyed it. It was complicated because what I wanted to do in the end of the day, I wanted to have Kasten come up saying the connection is secure. That's kind of my goal, right? I was doing a blog post, I'll show in a second, about multi-clusters, and you really need it to be the Ingress to have a verified certificate. I mean, there probably is a skip SSL somewhere, like, there always is. But I couldn't find it. I thought, you know what, let's bite the bullet. So, quickly show the setup. I can't do the whole thing during this video, but I'll show you. So here, I've got my multi-cluster, right? So there's two clusters here, which I'll talk about in a second. But for the first part of this talk I'm doing, I just wanted to show you this. My pride and joy connection is secure. Certificate is valid. Look at that. Smallstep intermediate CA. I'm not going to pretend I understand everything about how Smallstep works, but this is the first step to get in your lab, to just get it out there and then start to research slowly but surely, look into all the details, read the documentation as time permits. So, yeah, we got a secure certificate there. And just to show how this was, I won't show how it was done because that's kind of long, but I have a VM, which I created a special Podman VM on Ubuntu. I thought, well, this will be my Podman VM, and I'll just do all my little Podman tricks there. And so there it is. Oh, Podman. Oh, I'm in the wrong VM. Well, that would help if I went to the right VM. Podman PS. So it's just like Docker, right? It's very similar. In fact, you get a cheat sheet. I think Podman, by the way, is owned or it's supported completely by Red Hat. So that's where I found a cheat sheet. But there it is. It's a container. It's a Docker container. I mean, that's just where it's from. Docker. Well, it's from Docker, the Docker registry. And there you go. And I redid some stuff, and it's running. And what this does is this runs. Then I'm leveraging the Acme protocol, and you might have heard of Acme if you use Let's Encrypt because that's what it's using. It automates this whole process. To connect to Cert-Manager, I have two instances of Cert-Manager in two different Kubernetes clusters. And then Cert-Manager is issuing the certificate for Kasten, okay? And there's a whole chain of stuff we have to do. That's why it's too long for just one video now. But I'll at least show a few of the bits and pieces. So first off with Podman, which is really cool, is you obviously want Podman to start when, I want my container, this one to start when I start the VM if I turn it off. I turn off my lab sometimes because like I don't want to use electricity and pay for it if I'm not doing anything, right? Like I'm sleeping, why should my lab run? Just get hacked and electricity used up, so I turn it off. And sometimes I leave it on, depending on what I'm working on. If I'm stuck, I just turn it off and I walk away. So it turns out that there's a technique to do this in Podman, which is pretty original. And I'll just go through my history to find all my little commands. I don't remember what it was called. It's quad something. Quad, I was playing with certificates there. Quadlets. Okay, it's called quadlets. And what quadlets do, this basically, in conjunction with System D, allows you to start the container. And it's quite simple. All you do is, let's clear this up. Oh, you can't see anything. Well, that doesn't help. There we go. So let's go over here. So let's just clear that. And then there is in my user directory on my Podman machine, I called it Podman 0. You've got this config, right? And then you've got this container, and you create that container folder, and then System D. Oh gosh, I should have just gone right to the bottom. I will show you everything. And then what you do is you create this file in here, and I'll cat the file out. Okay, very simple file, and basically there you go. Your container, you've got the image, the registry, the ports you want to use, the volume. Okay, so and then service restart. One by default, I can't remember what that is. I put it in there. It was in the instructions. I put it in there. Okay, sometimes I do that, and then the whole system blows up. No, I don't, never on production, obviously. And then you just, reload the daemon, and then you add that to System D. Can't remember the exact command. We will find it, add it as your own user. So there, System D. This is it right here. 1 second. Well, that's the status. I enabled it. Start it. There you go. So after you reload the daemon, it's this one here. Let's just clear everything out. You just run. Oh, you don't run that command. Well, 1 second. That's what happens when you work too hard. Let's find it again. I should remember these things by heart. I went over about 50 times. So where is it? I didn't right click in time. So you enable it, you reload the daemon, and then you can just, you do this. You start it in this manner, see? And then you enable it. So normal System D, except you're using the user. So you're not having to use sudo. Don't use sudo, which is better for security. Okay, we'll clear that again. So that way, every time I start off that Podman VM, that container will start. Now I'm going to have more containers in there. Some I may choose to do that. Some may be containers I want to run once in a while. But I really like that's really cool. And off we go. So that's running. Then I have my 2 Kubernetes clusters. And here, basically, what do we have? I can't go through the whole thing. And I fully don't understand it yet. I mean, I went through the documentation enough to get this running. But Cert-Manager is big. And there's a lot of things you can do with it. But basically, the idea is you start this thing off, Cert-Manager. It has an issuer, and this issuer goes and talks to your root CA, wherever it may be, and basically does all these interactions. So using the Acme protocol, which was developed by Acme, by Let's Encrypt, and you can use it for other things. So let's just do this. It adds, when you install Cert-Manager, it adds CRDs, obviously, and one of them is the cluster issuer. I can't remember. Now, this is a cluster. It's not namespaced, right? So you can get it anywhere, and there it is. See? Staging. I called it staging. Ready is true, okay? And basically what you do is, depending on your application, how you set it up, there are different applications, but with Kasten, in the Helm chart, you create values which point it to this, and there's a secret. There's a whole way of doing it. Again, I won't go through it. I might go through this in separate stages at some point. One good thing to do when you use something complicated is obviously document the commands, which I've done in Obsidian. I've got an Obsidian page for this. But the other thing too is do it again like in a month, because, let it sink in. And when you do it again, try something different from the documentation. And that way, slowly but surely, your grip of the entire application will grow. Grip will grow. Isn't that good? One issue of Kasten, though, okay? The issue of Kasten is that by default, Kasten creates network policies, which is good for security, but it also good for security has a denial as one of the policies, obviously, right? And then, of course, opens things up. Well, there seems to be no way in the Helm chart where you can fiddle with that and add something. So the only recourse that I saw, and it was actually from somebody on the hub at asked, on the Veeam Community Hub, someone had the same problem about a year ago, and they figured it out, thank goodness, because I would have wasted a lot of time doing that. Eventually you check everything until you go to network, obviously. was to disable the network policies, which, yeah, I don't know. So by default, the only ones are going to be created like the Prometheus and Grafana one for some reason. But let's just go okay, get netpol. So just a reminder, in Kubernetes, default Kubernetes, different namespaces, nothing's stopping anything. So all the namespaces, all the pods and all the namespaces can talk to each other. And that's one of the things that you'll study for in the CKS is to harden those so that, lock it down like a firewall. It's very similar to actions of a firewall. So we'll go into the Kasten namespace and you will see there is only, wow, look at that, data mover one's appeared. That's interesting. It wasn't there when I installed it. It must be something to do with the backup that I did. Anyways, but normally there'd be more and there would be a deny all in there. So that deny all was stopping Cert-Manager from having it talk to, I don't know who was, someone wasn't able to talk to somebody in that whole chain of events. I didn't dig deep. I just fixed it right away. I also put a note in the community hub that really should be fixed. Anyways, long story short, small steps here. Cert-Manager is in both Kubernetes clusters. Acme protocol has been enabled, and through this Acme protocol, it can automatically create certificates for applications and renew them apparently, and check them and whatnot. So that's really good. And I'm going to play around my certificate authority and some other applications. For some you manually create certificates. Kasten does that through the Helm chart. We will see. But I will get to that eventually. The main thing was to get it working so I get some confidence and then to go back and look a little deeper. As for the Kasten multi-cluster, it's quite a good idea because what happens if you have a bunch of clusters you're managing? Okay, yeah, sure, you could have Kastens in each. Well, you can have Kastens in each anyways, but you could just log into each one each time and have like 100 Windows browser tabs open. It's a lot of fun always. And, then get mixed up and be in the wrong one and do something dumb. Not that any of us have ever done anything like that. Much better to leverage this multi-cluster setup. It's very simple. When you set up Kasten in this area over here, you will have, well, not over here. Let's go back to the cluster. So one of the clusters. This is the primary one. Down here, you've got multi-cluster. You can see it there, right? So multi-cluster. And what you can do is you can join. It's taking a while to come up. Here it is on the other cluster. So this one's joined, so you don't have any options. This one's still thinking. I might have overdone my lab a bit today. I've got like tons of things running. But basically there's a join and then there's a promote to primary here generally. It's all in the documentation. And so if you don't have a multi-cluster setup, you promote whichever one you're on, you choose to primary, and that becomes the primary. And then the other ones are secondary. And then all that allows you to do is that when you're on the primary one, which in my case is now stuck for some reason, always happens during demos. Let's go back and see if I can just, so to go to multi-cluster, now it's working, I know it's misbehaving. You get this beautiful multi-cluster window. And as you can see, I've got my two clusters. I've got the primary and I've got the one secondary. You can have a lot of secondaries. I can't remember if there's a limit, but you could have a lot down here. So it'd be very convenient. And of course, what's really cool, you can create global policies. So if you have, and global profiles and all sorts of stuff like RBAC permissions. But if, for instance, you have, like you're using storage, well, the same storage for all the clusters, you could then create a global location profile. Global policies. Let's say you have in all of your clusters the same application type running or something like that. I'm assuming you should create a global policy. I have none now, but if I create this global policy, I could be able to back everything up. So much more convenient, much more effective. You got infrastructure. Distributions, I can't remember what those, let's take a look at those are. Name for the distribution must be Kubernetes compatible. Interesting. All right, I'll have to read up on that. Resources, we'll see. I think I used to remember. And of course, licensing is very important. There you go. Add new licenses, the license page, and then you can push them down to all of your clusters. I'm on right now the starter license, trial starter license, because this is all basically a big demo, right? Right. Okay, so that was that goal, and I achieved that, and I was quite proud of myself when it worked. I mean, there was a lot of steps where it wouldn't. Another fun step I got stuck on was I'm leveraging K3S for my Kubernetes clusters because they're quick, bring them up quickly, whatnot. but there are some caveats. And one of the problems is, again, with this whole certification setup, certificate, not, I think I'm still thinking exams, certificate setups, you need communication going on, right? And one of the things I had to do was to use my internal root CA, my internal CA, step CA server, or Podman container. I had to leverage my internal lab DNS. Well, normally K3S will look at the host it's on and take that DNS and leverage that. It's not doing it now. I think it's because Ubuntu's changed some stuff. I think this only looks at resolve conf. I don't know. It wasn't working. So the goal was then to add my DNS server inside of K3S. The problem is, and I'll show you now, is that K3S is leveraging core DNS. Okay, that's fine. And not only K3S, I think a lot of, if not all Kubernetes, a lot of them are. Anyways, let's get our pods in Kube system, and I'll show it to you. So there it is, core DNS, there it is, right? And that is configured automatically by a config map, which is created when the system is started or at the very beginning. And those are relying on some manifests, and it gets really complicated. And like you change the manifest, it gets rewritten. Any changes I make in this core DNS, it's going to be rewritten on reboot or restart. So that's no good. Turns out there's a very simple solution. All you have to do is create another config map in Kube system namespace and call it custom core DNS something. Let's take a look. So kget cm for config map, Kube system, and there you go. You will see the core DNS one, and then you'll see it core DNS custom. And core DNS knows that it needs to read this as well. And if we just say get config map core DNS and then custom OYAML, very simple file, API version 1, data, and there you go. That's the IP address of my internal DNS server. After doing that, I created the BusyBox pod because it has, of course, some networking utilities in it. And I was able to ping anything on my local network. So after that, my whole certificate thing started working. Well, in the other applications I was playing around with. Not Kasten because of network policies. So it was a frustrating affair. But it makes it so much more fun when it actually works after you've gone through all that, right? So yeah, so there we go. That's all set. Anything else to talk about today? Well, next week's gonna be a big week. So I won't be around next week. I might do a special show though from a special place, and I'll tell you where. So first of all, I'm going to Minnesota, to Minneapolis, first time ever, on Wednesday, I believe, or Thursday for a VUG, so Veeam User Group meeting where I'm presenting. I fly back to Toronto and on Friday, I believe, and then Saturday I fly off to Berlin. Yes, Berlin, Germany, not Berlin, Ontario. Actually, there is no Berlin, Ontario. There used to be a Berlin, Ontario before World War I. And then they changed it to Kitchener, which is the name of an English general. So you can see, I'm going to the real Berlin. Been there quite a few times in the past, but it's going to be a lot of fun for the Veeam 100 Summit. Veeam 100 Summit happens every year. Veeam Vanguards, Veeam Legends, and Veeam MVPs, who are internal Veeam employees, meet up. They share information, talk about things, get new information from Veeam. A lot of networking, a lot of fun, and I've been to it twice now. Both first times were in Prague. They were fantastic, and this time it's Berlin. So I think I'll probably do a video from there. Berlin, fascinating city. So I'll see you perhaps from Berlin. And going forward, just for future plans, I'm playing with HashiCorp, and I'm going to connect HashiCorp up to Veeam. Well, maybe not to Veeam, Kasten, Veeam Kasten. I call it Veeam Kasten now, for secrets. And we'll talk about secrets. Not next time, because I'll be in Berlin. Although it's a good place to talk about secrets. It was called the Spy City. There's a Spy Bridge in Potsdam, which is just south of Berlin, Bridge of Spies, where they used to, during the Cold War, they would exchange like prisoners. So maybe we can do secrets in Berlin. I'll be too exhausted. Maybe when I come back. Maybe I'll get some new secrets in Berlin. Alrighty, we will see you next time I record. Bye-bye.